In ragged, spasmodic fashion, a new world order is coming into being.
Where are we as we think about this time in American foreign policy? Are we at a special moment which is being redefined? Or are we creating a new world order?
We're at a moment when the international system is in a period of change like we haven't seen for several hundred years. In some parts of the world, the nation state on which the existing international system was based is either giving up its traditional aspects, like in Europe, or as in the Middle East.
And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged an experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order, a new consensus as to how life should and could be lived.
The new world order.
A new world order.
And we'd have a new world order.
We are part of a new world order.
As we devise a way forward in Iraq, I urge the international community to embrace its responsibility for creating that new world order. A new world order based upon collective action.
Looking at the subtitle this morning, Are We Ready for the New World Order? Gives me something of the shudders.
New World Order wants a global system where one small central authority of individuals can then dictate a policy that's going to be distributed down to the rest of the world, everywhere, in the smallest little town in the middle of nowhere in some remote country.
The idea of global governance in a one world order has been around for centuries, and the term New World Order has been used frequently in recent history.
The New World Order means different things to different people, but to those who expect to be in control of it, it means the same thing. It means all the world under their control. They believe that somebody must rule. After all, people are too darn dumb to know how to rule themselves. They figured that that's their role.
The first in-depth publication of note was Samuel Zane Batten's work, The New World Order, which was published in 1919. Under the cloak of Christianity, this order speaks of a new world rising and advocates social control over all people and all resources. It promotes a world federation with a world parliament, an international court, and a global police force. Some of its goals are as follows. International. The creation of an international mind with a world consciousness and a world patriotism. The destruction of every arbitrary power that can separately and of its single choice disturb the peace of the world.
Well, government is good, right? It put an end to war. Well, it could put an end to war because you just only have one dictator.
If we don't end war, war will end us. Well, what can you do? Yeah. What can we do?
What's all this fuss about in the papers tonight, Mr. Cabell?
Wars and rumors of wars.
Crying wolf?
Someday the wolf will come. These fools are capable of anything.
In that case, what happens to medical research?
It has to stop.
That'll mess me up.
Mess you up. Mess everything up. My God, if war gets loose again. What's the matter with you fellas? Oh, that. This little upset across the water doesn't mean anything. Threatened men live long and threatened wars never occur. Real old-fashioned Christmas this year. Fresh little snow with a nip in the air, eh?
What was that? Sounded like a gun.
No guns here. Merry Christmas, Cabell. Here's to another good year for all of us. Another year of recovery, eh?
What are searchlights doing now?
Yes. Well, it must be anti-aircraft maneuvers. Maneuvers at Christmas? No.
Listen, guns again.
War has broken out suddenly. There may be an air raid, but it is not likely to be a very serious one.
Soon we shall have victory and peace. All is well. God save the chief. God save our land.
There it is. You were right. A plane once more.
You and you. Find out who this is and what it means.
Who's in control of this part of the country?
The chief. What we call the boss.
Good. I want to see him. Well, what do you want to see me about?
Who are you? Do you know this country's at war?
At war? Still at it, eh? We must clean that up.
What do you mean we must clean it up? All's war. Who are you, I say?
The law. Law and sanity.
I'm the law here.
I said law and sanity.
Where do you come from? Who are you?
Wings over the world.
Well, you know you can't come into a country like this in this fashion.
I'm here. Do you mind if I sit down?
And now, for the fourth time, who are you?
I tell you, wings over the world.
That's nothing. What government are you under?
Common sense. I belong to world communications.
Now, look here, Mr. Aviator. Let's see how we stand. Come down to actuality. The way you swagger, you don't seem to realize you're under arrest. You and your machine.
You will find other planes looking for me if I happen to be delayed.
We'll deal with them later. Now, you can start a trading agency here if you like. I've no objection. The first thing we shall want is to get our planes in the air again.
Quite. A laudable ambition. But our new order has an objection to private airplanes.
The impudence.
I'm not talking about private airplanes. Our airplanes are public airplanes. This is an independent sovereign state at war. I know nothing about any old order. I'm the chief here, and I'm not taking any orders, old or new, from you.
I suppose I've walked into trouble.
Yeah, you can take that as right. This is an independent sovereign state.
Yes, we must talk about that.
We don't discuss it.
We don't approve of independent sovereign states.
You don't approve?
We mean to stop them.
That's war.
If you will.
Author H.G. Wells, the man behind The Time Machine and War of the Worlds, would write about a planned world state in which there must be a common faith and law for mankind. In 1939, he would publish a full book on the matter called The New World Order. Wells again has a similar vision, stating that national individualism has to go and that sovereign states must end. He then goes on to write, in the great struggle to evoke westernized world socialism, contemporary governments may vanish. Perhaps his most chilling prediction is that countless people will hate the New World Order, be rendered unhappy by frustration and their passions and ambitions through its advent, and will die protesting against it. Many of them quite gallant and graceful-looking people.
Collectivism is that concept where individuals are considered to be discardable, and that the group is more important, and that the ultimate group, of course, is the state. And so it boils down eventually to the fact that the state is the all-important unit of society, and citizens exist only to serve the state.
Other men of prominence would also promote a New World Order during the 1960s, including industrialist and former New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller. These are some of the reasons pressing us to lead vigorously towards the true building of a new world order. Rockefeller would also become vice president under Gerald Ford. Religious leader Pope Paul VI, delegates to international organizations, public officials, gentlemen of the press, teachers and educators, all of you must realize that you have your part to play in the construction of a new world order.
There's got to be compliance with the executive branch, because otherwise it doesn't work. And you pick the people that run those agencies and the deputies that are pledging allegiance to the new world order.
The time has come for the world to move in a new direction. We must embrace a new era of engagement based on mutual interest and mutual respect, and our work must begin now.
And the president outlined his vision of a new world order in which the U.S. would participate fully.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order. So we have to do what we do best. We have to lead. We have to lead. We have to update the global rules of the road. We have to do it in a way that maximizes benefits for everyone, because obviously it's overwhelmingly in our interest. This is not a zero-sum game. It's overwhelmingly in our interest.
Defense Secretary Dick Cheney has approved a revised draft of a policy document on the new world order. The Pentagon is backing off a controversial earlier draft and has abandoned a one superpower strategy. The final document puts more emphasis on international alliances and organizations.
Australia, hello and welcome. One world, one dream.
Masked but not muted. Me and you. Together we'll reimagine the world, because this is our way.
Now we have to talk about globalism. Really, globalism masquerades as, well, we want everyone to be together, we want everyone to share in the wealth and stuff. And meanwhile, they're exploiting half the third world who still live on a bowl of rice and some cicadas each day. And those cicadas, they're not even artisanal. They're not even biological and organic and farm-raised. Oh my God, they're not given antibacterial substances injected with them to make them safe. Globalists, basically, what they want is worldwide serfdom, and that's the inevitable end result of the kind of neoliberal globalist policies we've got. So really, globalism is this, and you look at trade deals and you can see exactly how they're working. Look at the TPP. All the liberals thought it was the gold standard of trade deals and then silently edited their opinions during the 2016 election initially. What's the TPP? And this is the gold standard of neoliberal trade deals. Just to be clear, this is what they want for the world. The TPP is basically a U.S. billionaire can go into Vietnam, shove out smaller competitors, carve out a niche, and then put up a box store. A Vietnamese billionaire can do the same thing in California. That's basically the TPP. The TPP is basically the elite of a country selling out literally everybody else out in the country in order to acquire more wealth, to acquire more commercial rights, industrial rights, mining rights, land, and so forth, and also now housing.
Control over land, natural resources, and entire populations. It seeks to control the air by regulation of carbon emissions, the ground by sustainable development, and the sea through environmental regulations. Officially stated, Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which human impacts on the environment. Because being human will always have an impact on the environment, Agenda 21 paves the way for extraordinary UN control.
They're buying up homes, paying like 120% value to force everyone else out, and buying up entire communities. The whole goal is to buy up large swaths of land and then price fix them, and do so with taxpayer money. They are essentially getting guaranteed 0% interest loans. Imagine this. If I were to try to seek a loan from a bank, and I said, well, I want $10 million at 0% interest, and I'll pay it back eventually, all I'm going to do is I'm going to buy up properties at more than their actual value, and I'm going to sit on them. And then as the price of goods, because of hyperinflation, which will continue, I think, for years, as the price of goods and so forth skyrockets and demand for those kinds of structures increases, we're just going to price the lower and middle classes out. Doctors will soon be living in 2-bedroom homes, and so I'll be able to sell them at a much higher amount. I get the money back, I get another loan, reinvest, pay it off, and rinse and repeat.
Then they would destroy private ownership and own our lands.
Then they want you to live in a pod, basically. We see this, basically they want the whole world to be California. You'll have a small number of haves who still, you know, they live in conditions that right now the average middle classer can afford in small town America. You have the haves there, then you have a kind of haves and they live in a pod, and then you have the have-nots and they're basically serfs, living 5 to a micro apartment, eating bugs. They want steak, they're not going to give it up, but you'll eat bugs.
Forget the turkey this year for Thanksgiving, how about insect protein?
These right here are whole-roasted, Texas barbecue-flavored cricket snacks. Born on a robotic cricket farm in Texas, raised in a big tub, frozen into cricket bricks, then roasted and flavored. And for the record, they're all right.
We've been moving along this process. We've been educating thousands of people all over the world about edible insects, specifically crickets. We call them the gateway bug.
Consider these gateway bugs. Barclays is estimating that insect protein will be an $8 billion market by 2030. Why? It takes so much less land and water to get the same amount of protein out of insects than it does from traditional animals. Plus, you get more fiber. You're eating a skeleton. Oh my God, nutty. Look, 2 billion people already eat bugs on this planet.
These supposed globalist elites are on another move to make everyone in the world eat bugs and be happy. It appears the World Economic Forum Great Reset global leaders are really rushing to implement their sinister agenda and have everything in place by 2030. They see a future for us where we are completely dependent on them and the sole decision of their insane government and are made to eat bugs. And of course, the meat and dairy markets would not only be the most affected by a shift to alternative protein sources like bugs and insects and engineered meats. To the World Economic Forum big shots, they see lean meat as environmentally dangerous, and because of that, they would do everything in their power to ban everyone in the world from consuming them, and rather eat insects like bugs and crickets as alternatives to meat to slow protein consumption. Citizens who would be coerced into eating these insects' processed foods would equally be at a high risk of developing parasitic diseases. A 2019 study conducted on insect farms found that 81% had parasites, of which 30% were harmful to humans. According to a United Nations agency and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, protein intake is expected to slow down in wealthy countries such as Canada as consumers shift towards plant-based diets and alternatives like insect-based meat. You would recall that in a 2030 Global Agriculture Report, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development have predicted that there is going to be an unprecedented shift in food consumption habits globally in the coming years. Apparently, this means that in wealthy countries with high income, the average per capita consumption of proteins is not expected to increase over the next decade. The report cited reasons such as near saturation in consumption of proteins like lean meat and increasing concerns about health and the environment. Meanwhile, these concerns, along with supposedly fair considerations as regards the safety and eating of animals, are speculated to boost demand for plant-based proteins and alternative protein sources like insects and engineered meat. But of course, when you try to wrap your head around the ridiculous reasons why the United Nations and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development have to team up with the World Economic Forum on their globalist narcissistic agenda, you would realize at the end of the day that those three are evidently birds of the same feathers. And therefore, it shouldn't be so surprising anymore that they are all subtle advocates of the supposedly insane Great Reset. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the United Nations, the consumer trend for substituting animal meat with alternatives, such as insects, looks hopeful in developed countries. The report explained that consumers' purchasing choices are increasingly influenced by factors beyond prices, culture, and taste, such as health and environmental concerns and ethical considerations regarding the welfare and eating of animals and their products.
And as our population grows to 9 billion people by the year 2050, our current agricultural practices are not going to stand.
Climate change technocrats keep telling us that we're going to have to eat bugs to save the planet. You know who won't be eating bugs? Climate change technocrats. Sky News is normalizing the idea of you eating bugs to reduce your carbon footprint. You know who won't be reducing her carbon footprint? The CEO of Sky, Dana Strong, who regularly commutes by private jet from her home 3,500 miles away in the United States.
They'll continue to fly. They have private jets, so there's no problem. But they're going to cram you in more people to the plane because then it's more environmentally friendly. to basically make your life as uncomfortable as possible in the hopes of squeezing every last penny out of you. That's essentially what globalism means. It's not about stopping war at this point. It's not about drawing nations together for benevolent purposes. No, it's drawing them together through trade, but it's not going to be useful for you. They get the filet mignon and you get the cicada burger, and they'll convince you, by the way, that you're happy.
You never own assets anymore that are yours. So everything that you ever had will become the government's. Now you think that's where they're going to stop? No, the plan is not just for the individual. The plan is for nations to forfeit their sovereignty. So it's about the one world government. So they own you and they own everything you ever owned.
Imagine there's no borders. Imagine there's no way to protect your property. Imagine you don't have property. Imagine private property is abolished. Imagine you rely on the state for grain. Imagine a beautiful world like that. Imagine you line up for bags of rice and bread and you can't protect yourself. You can't own land. You can't own anything. The state can put a gun to your head for no reason. Imagine, even though guns are abolished, you have to have guns to enforce the abolishment of guns. It's complicated. But imagine that. If you want to get there, you need something more powerful than reason.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
Again, a unified Europe was a major goal in creating this order.
With few exceptions, the world now stands as one.
The ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it.
During his visit to Asia this week, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin outlined his key concern.
And while we were focused on issues in the Middle East,
China has modernized its military, and so our goal is to make sure that we maintain a competitive edge over China.
What Austin calls America's edge over China is more like a chasm. The United States has nearly 20 times the number of nuclear warheads as China. It has twice the tonnage of warships at sea, including 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, compared with China's 2 carriers, which are much less advanced. Washington has over 2,000 modern fighter jets, compared to Beijing's roughly 600. The U.S. deploys this power using a vast network of some 800 overseas bases. China has 3.
Hopefully, there'll be more room for political reform. And then you could have a new world order where China would be a very important member.
The president has spoken often of a new world order.
And we have an unprecedented opportunity to build a new era of peace and prosperity here and abroad, to build a new world order.
It's my understanding, I think, that the president, and I don't know the context of how it came up in his speech last night in New York, said that China must be a part of the new world order. Guess I would like to ask you how you envision China fitting into the new world order.
It is a country that we are going to have relationships with by virtue of its geopolitical importance.
American officials say breaking down regional and national barriers to the flow of goods and services would represent a spectacular benefit to economies around the world.
We are building a new world order.
The whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is getting me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. Anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control.
First, what this microchip looks like. It's about the size of a grain of basmati rice. So Patrick here is the CIO. Andy is a licensed body piercer, so let it rip. We're going to see this now.
I got it.
I can't look. I can't look. Needle is in. Chip is in.
Bingo.
Not very much blood at all. Patrick, how'd that feel?
Better than get my wisdom teeth out.
Okay, and you're still conscious.
Yeah, I'm great.
Melissa got chipped yesterday, but you had to be talked into doing this. How long did it take you to say yes to this?
I was a little hesitant at first, but I had 7 days to think about it, and once I learned the facts, there was no question in my mind.
Okay, one last thing we want to show you over here. Hold on, Matt. Go ahead, Steve. They can buy their goodies here in the break room by just using their hand. Real quickly, he's going to get a Kit Kat bar. And it's paid for, $1.06, guys. So the question again, as we asked you last week, are you ready to be chipped, guys?
And you're protesting what they're doing. They can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people. And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people. And you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
Some people have called it the New World Disorder, and there's a lot of truth to that.
I think that we have, in fact, kind of had this term thrown at us, and many of us have not liked it, partially because of the previous historical connotation, and partially because I think it doesn't really deal with the way the world ought to be or is at the moment. But we are far from seeing a world order, and I'm not sure that it is in best U.S. interest to have a new world order in which we are the policeman.
Many began to become critical of this order.
We are very, very skeptical of an international order if we are not sure how the rules will be made, because thus far the international order has been made with rules that we had no input into and that affect us, and even when on the few occasions when the rules will seem to favor us, then they get changed. A unipolar world, a world of one superpower, may be quite dangerous for us.
The New World Order under the United Nations would mean, among other things, an end to our God-given rights given us and secured by the Constitution.
It's very easy to create chaos, but it's difficult to re-establish order. And today, unfortunately, some countries are persistently trying to create chaos. There's no bigger danger than a world order that has lost mercy, conscience, truth, and hope. And that is the danger that we're facing now.